go to any directory where you want the program to run and create a Python file. I have created mine and called it main.py. We will start by importing some modules that we will need. First, we will import JSON and we will import random. That will be all. One of the most important things in game development is building a player. We make the character class that will be the basis of any player that we create. Out of a character class, we can create unique players with different abilities. So let us start by creating a class and call it character. Now we will define a constructor in itself. Constructor of this class is going to take name, health point, attack, defense, and level as parameters. And the level we will give it 1, which means that every player will start at level 1. We set name to name. We will give it an experience 0. Now this is going to be the main attributes of any player at all. The HP is the health points of a character, and it will decrease whenever the player takes damage, right? When he gets hit by an enemy. Now the defense power of the character will reduce any damage that the player gets. The level refers to the level of the player in that specific game. So whenever the player wins any battle, his level will increase. And also as the player wins stuff and gain items and win battles, his experience will increase. A character, which is a player, will take damage. So we can define take damage function and we will pass the damage. Let's say that you are fighting with an enemy. The enemy can hurt the player. When a player takes damage, then we are going to subtract it from his HP, that is health point. But we do not want any negative value. We make sure that we subtract the character's defense from the damage that he is incurring. We can define a function that will tell us whether our character is alive or not. We can do is alive, and it will not contain any parameter, and this will return health point of the player is greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, the player is alive. If it is not greater than 0, then probably he is dead. We can do define gain experience, and this method can take experience as a parameter. So whenever we get an experience, we will add it to our experience like that, and if the experience exceed a certain amount, we will level up. We can say if self.experience is greater than or equal to self.hp times 10, we will call a function to level up. So this level up obviously will increase the level of the player. Define this function, we can do level up, and it will not take any parameter, and whenever a player levels up, he gets some values increase. The level will increase by 1. We can also increase the health point by 10. We give the player more attacking power. We can give him more defense by 2. We will set the experience to 0. Okay. Whenever the player's experience reaches 10, his level will increase by 1. Whenever we call the level up function, we can print an information to the console. The name of the player, level up 2, then we can. This will be the character class. Out of this character class, we are going to create specific players with unique abilities. Let's give a comment and say warrior. We can create our class warrior, and this class is going to inherit from the character class. We bring our bracket and we call the character class here. Now we define constructor for this self. Whenever we create an instance of the character class, we will pass the name to it. Then also we need to call the constructor of the class we are inheriting from. Init. Then according to our character class, the constructor contains name, health point, attack, defense, and level. So we do name. The name we've already passed here, right? But the others, we need to give them some default values. Now let us create another unique player, and we will call this mage. So we can create a class mage, and this class as well will inherit from the character class. We define the constructor for this class. and we'll pass self and name. Once we are done with that, we also need to define the constructor of the class that it inherits from, and that was the last special player will be the archer. The archer is also a combat specialist, and he excels when he attacks from a distance. Okay, so we create a class archer. It will inherit from the character class as usual. We call the constructor in itself. Whenever we create it, we need to pass the name and super. So this will be the 3 main unique players that we are going to use in our game, which means that when you decide to play this game, you get the chance to select the player that you want to be, whether you want to be a warrior or a mage or an archer. If you have ever played a game before, you realize that the player can pick up certain items. It could be a sword to fight, it could be stars, it could be coins to earn more money. Now all those items are classified in the inventory system. So an inventory system will give us an environment to create and save all the items that a user can ever use in the game. We can define class an item. As usual, we define the constructor, we put in self. Whenever we want to initialize an item, we have to give it a name, we have to define the item type and also the effect, because some items are to make the player fight more. Some items like potions are used to heal the player when he is hurt. Once we define that, we can go ahead and set the values. Effect is equal to effect. Now we have this attribute for an item class. We need to define how we will use the items. Define usage of items. So we can write this method as, let's say, use. This method could take the character as a parameter, right? So whenever the character wants to use a certain item, I think it is obvious that we need to check the type of item. Once we know the type of item, we can define how the user is using it. The 2 main items that we will have will be a weapon and also potion. Potion is for medication and weapon is for fighting. So we can do an if statement here and say if self.item type is equal to potion. Then we can call the character which we have defined above, and potion is for healing, right? So healing, we are going to look at the health points of the character. So we will call the minimum internal function and we do character.hp. Then we will add it to the effects of the specific item. So we will say self.effect, and also we call character.level times 10 plus 90. So we will pick the minimum out of this, which is going to be like the character plus the self effect, obviously. Once the user is using the potion, we can write a message. We can do character.name, use something, right? What did he use? He used the name of the item and healed. So we can show the effects of the item, HP. Once we are done with this, we can check if the item the user selected was like a weapon. We are going to add the effect of that item to the attack power of the character. If correct this character.attack, we can add the effect of the item to the attack, just like that. Then we can print a message. So the user has gained a certain amount of attacking power. So we can say this character is equipped with something, name of the item, and he gained, we show the effect of the item that he picked. So let's say that he picked a sword that has a power of 10, then we can say that of effect of that attack. Now this should be enough for defining an item. Any item that the user can ever pick will have a name, item type, and effect. Now we can create an inventory. So the inventory will be like a container that will contain all the items that the user can ever pick. So we can define class inventory. We will define a constructor self, and the constructor will not contain anything. Immediately you instantiate an inventory class, it will just create an array of items. Because this is an inventory and we said that all the items of a player can be managed by the inventory system, it means that there should be a method that will allow the player to save the item that he picked. Also, there should be a method that will allow the user to remove an item from the inventory. Let's add a comment like we can add an item. So we define a method and we call it add item. It can take the item as a parameter, and we call the served of items, and we are going to add this item to it. So because it's a list or an array, we just append it to it. Now we can add item, so let us be able to remove item. Define remove item. Now if we want to remove an item, then we need to pass the item that we want to remove. So we do the serve.items remove. We pass the item that we want to remove. A method in the inventory, let's say use an item. So we can define a method and call it use item, right? If we want to use any item, then we can pass the item name and also the character, that is the player who wants to use the item. Now this inventory class will contain all the items of a player, which means that we have to loop through his items and get the specific item that he wants to use. So we can do for item in served over items. Now if we find the item the user is looking for, item.name is equal to item name. If this is true, then we can use the item. We can do item.use, and according to the item.use method that we define here, we pass the character. So item.use, then we pass the character. Once an item has been used, we need to remove it from it. It could also happen that we are looking for an item which is not available in our inventory. In that case, we have to tell the player that item is not found, and we can return false. That is method for using item. Now correct this, use item, not user item. So now let's define the method that will save our inventory, and also the method that will load the inventory. So define save inventory. This method can take the file name. We want to save the inventory, so we have to compile all the inventory into, let's say, a JSON file. So we will use the with Python command. With this we pass the file name. Because we are saving it, we want to write as file, and we call the json.dump function. And because it's an array, we need to loop our entire array and write them into the file. So we will do item dot, we call the dictionary function, or date for item in served of items, and we pass the file. This will allow us to write all the items in the inventory array into a JSON file and save it in our system. The last method that we can create is to load inventory. So we do define load inventory, and to take a file name if we want to reload a previously played game. So we do with open Python function, we pass in the file name, and this time we are going to read as file. Now we need to create a list or an array that will get the files. So we pass the files right here. Now we set items to the JSON file that we want to read, and we will loop through the file and write them to the items list in the inventory class. So we will do served of items, right? And we are going to loop through. So we call the items class right here, and then we will do item. We get the specific names, we get the name, we get the item type as we define in the item class. Then we also get the item effect. And because we are looping through the Python file, we can do for item in items. That should be all for the inventory class.